I've heard it.
Ragnar. I got interested in Norse mythology outside of just normal, broad paganism probably 7 years ago.
Nice.
And honestly, it was all about finding my family heritage and what did my family believe in for so many hundreds or thousands of years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is where it became very apparent that I wanted to hone in my skills and my practice as far as a pagan and a teacher. I've been teaching different things pretty much since I've been able to be called a teacher. But yeah, I mean, I wanted to hone my skills in on my Norse paganism as well as my Native American heritage.
Oh, nice.
We're here for paganism, so we don't really have to talk about the Native American stuff at all. But yeah, I mean, jumped into it, and Odin took me by the throat and threw me in head first,
Right. So,
yeah.
what tribe are you from in Native American?
Native American.
Uh-huh.
So it is the Seminole tribe. My dad always joked with me and said that Chief Osceola was one of my ancestors. Now I don't know that to be true,
Uh-huh.
but I can find myself back to the Seminole tribe. And being that the chief probably had a whole lot to do with, supplying population for the tribe, it was more than likely somebody like that. But I don't, it doesn't matter to me who it was. I just know that's who it was. My family came from down south. My given last name is Lee, so of course it's a southern name.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we come from the south, and that's where I got my heritage from there. The Old Norse stuff actually comes from my family in the Netherlands and Normandy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So, being that you're from the Seminole tribe, does that mean you're a Florida State fan?
Honestly, I don't get into the politics of college. No, I'm not a sports guy, to be honest with you. I do like, fighting sport as far as sports go. I don't do too many team sports. I played basketball as a kid. That's about the limit that I have for sports.
Okay.
Sure. So I don't care if you don't like U of M, if you don't like MSU, because I'm in Michigan now. I was born and raised in Detroit. I didn't come from down south personally. Just the family did. So, I mean, I have no hard feelings. If somebody hates how horrible our baseball team is in Detroit, I get it.
Well, I am a Wolverines fan, so I guess that makes it okay.
Sure. Yeah.
So, anyway, one thing that I wanted to get into, because I'm so just in I don't know I don't even know the word.
Enthralled.
Yeah, enthralled, I guess you'd say, in runes, and so.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. Even when the show's over, I'd like to talk to you more about it, because I really want to learn as much as I can.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, I mean, runes that's a class in itself, right? So I mean, the use of them, if we want to just jump in, the use of them started far beyond the Viking Age.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, it was used all throughout different Teutonic tribes. Being that I think I lost the video. Oh, we're good. Yeah, they were used throughout Teutonic tribes for 1,000 years prior to the Viking Age. And the most common rune set that we see in metaphysical shops being sold for divination or anything like that, or popularized mainly, is the 24 Elder Futhark. And
Yes.
that is actually it's a Proto-Germanic language. It doesn't compute with the Old Norse language or the dialect that comes with it. So it's hard to put any, say, like Old Norse words or poetry into an Elder Futhark rune set, let alone when people are trying to put their English or their anglicized name into such a way. So I mean, it's interesting to watch how the runes evolve over time. From the Teutonic tribes of Proto-Germany and dying out into Iceland. And they stopped. I mean, really, even if we talk about when did Vikings or when did Scandinavian people, you've got to use the term Vikings with a grain of salt, honestly, nowadays, because we don't. When I say Vikings, I don't mean the people who went out and raided. I just use this as a broad term to talk about people within the Viking Age. So if we're talking about Viking Age Scandinavians, speaking Old Norse and using the runes probably went out most popularly by 900. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we got uh, into the Roman alphabet quickly, and it was a lot more detailed and a lot easier to read. And we didn't use runes then to really have a whole lot of descriptive poetry or anything. So you don't find any Eddic poetry or too much talking about the gods or the religious practice in the rune stones. It's usually just out of memory.
Mm-hmm.
And ironically enough, once the Christianization happened, you see still, many people using rune stones in memory of their family. Excuse me, out of the respect for the old culture.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of confusion about the runes, and that's where I get held up a whole lot in conversation. Honestly, is where when can we apply them to what language, and how can I get? And most what you always get is what is my name in runes, right? What is my name in runes? Well, what runes? Do you want to go back to Grecian runes? Do you want Ogham sticks? Do you want Elder Futhark, Younger Futhark, Danish short twig? I mean, there's a ton of different variations down into English. The people in England at the same time were using modified versions of the Elder Futhark. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot to say about them. That's for sure. I'm happy to, obviously we don't have to be on a podcast to be talking about that, man. I'm glad to have befriended you guys. Any questions down the road, whatever. I'm happy. This is what I like to talk about, right?
Oh yeah.
So,
Well, I mentioned to everyone earlier that I've talked with you back and forth. Of course, there's been messaging, but
yeah.
just to hear you or to read back and forth, you can tell how steeped you are into the whole lore. And also, I've watched your live videos, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is so knowledgeable. I could just listen to you talk for hours.
I appreciate that, and I think that's actually where we met. Right, was one of the last big ones that I did. The last video that I did. I think it was you, Kyle, right? That I met.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah,
was.
I mean, that was a good time in and of itself. I love to, yeah, like I said, I love talking about it. It's a kid in a candy store, you know. It's just Vikings don't get along well. That's the thing. So if you get me in the room with another Norse pagan of some type, oftentimes we have a horrible different concept of what Odin wants you to be. I mean, there's unfortunately a lot of neo-Nazi nonsense that happens within the type of within this type of like toxically masculine, get out and raid type scenario. And that's just not how it was. That's not how the Nordic person would have acted about somebody who was of a different culture. In fact,
Right.
it was, you as a king, say in 900 in Norway, say, okay, we'll say, King Harald Finehair, a pretty popular king. He would be draped in, glass from India and beads from India and silks from China on the Silk Road, and this showed how well traveled and well versed this man was about the world. And in trading centers in, Hedebir, which would be what we know as Hedeby now, these were places that were filled with whoever they could get in that was the most unique trader around to, again, when another type of person came or an important person came to visit that trading station, your city appeared to have more wealth, more knowledge, more understanding of a well-traveled world. So the concept of the neo-Nazi nationalism stuff, I just bang my head against the wall about that stuff. And most, unfortunately, I won't say most, a lot of people are like that, who take this culture on, as their own for a faith system.
Well, the whole Aryans and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. It's
Yep.
it's ridiculous.
It's wild. Honestly, the number one thing that keeps me from getting my bind rune tattooed right on the face, sure, a job. I'm pretty secure in what I'm doing for a living, though. But the biggest thing is, what if I run across somebody who forces me to, be who that is, or like misappropriates who I am,
Hmm.
both from somebody who may be of Nordic descent or lack thereof. I mean, I wear the hammer every day. I wear several hammers on my wrist, on my neck, on my ring, and there are times where somebody who is a different culture than my own gives me that questioning look, and I try to be overzealous about it every time. Be more than gracious to everybody that I meet, because that's not my belief. But it's unfortunately, it hinders you from just being yourself without having to go over and above, But you got to weed through that stuff. I mean, it's important to know your culture, and if you don't understand it, I wish these guys would want to be more institutional about it, because it's not that way.
I find it fascinating, and which is one of the reasons why I don't know if you've seen our logo or not, but I actually use the runes as a way to, for protection, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I
I,
noticed. Yeah,
I sent you the picture of the tattoo that I got. Michelle and I both have the same one. It's our protection as we go out and do these
absolutely,
investigations.
absolutely. Which is
And
important, man. I mean, that's an important thing to try to use, and the runes are strong for that.
it
I'm
just
going back since you can hear me. I'm going back so I can actually see that tattoo again. Because yeah. And there's a lot going on in this runic tattoo. Did you design it yourself, or did you
actually,
have somebody?
actually Michelle designed it, believe it or not.
Okay.
Yeah, she did an excellent job at it, and I'm like, oh, this is perfect. So we both decided to get it. It's bad luck to get your
I get
mate's
it.
name put on you. So we're like, what can we do to be the same? And like, oh,
Yeah,
this is perfect.
yeah. My soulmate, myself, and I can't say wife because we're not legally married, but fuck that, we're married. I don't know if you would say that here. I don't know what your
No,
profanity.
we have a disclaimer at the beginning of it, and it's also labeled as explicit if you look it up.
Okay, okay. I appreciate it. I
Go
didn't want
fucking A.
to.
Go
Yeah.
fucking A. Go ahead and say it, man.
I got a bad mouth, man. There's a whole lot of shit going on in this. I can see it here, and it's complex, man. I would love to know where the original idea came from to conjoin these runes, or was it just over some basic knowledge of runes and then kind of imagining it yourself? Because there's a lot going on here. I like it.
Yeah, well, we are pretty much laymen when it comes to the whole thing. I mean, we have lots of books, and we're
Sure.
always checking stuff out. And she picked out the ones that she thought were perfect for protection.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Absolutely.
and
So
my
that's the.
oh, go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say that's the interesting thing about runes is um, people have used them magically, but it's only been more common as of late. So there's only one resource as far as like original source material coming from, say, 1200 and prior, of poetry depicting any sort of magical practice with the runes. And it is, of course, it'll escape me right now of which one it is, but the Norns are spoken of carving runes into wood. Actually, conveniently, I did not set this up. I literally just walked in, but this is where I do my live videos anyways. But they would carve runes very much like, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, and it doesn't matter for the people listening, but you carve runes into something versus actually like some of the fate. So some of the Grecian the fates would have weaved, right?
Hmm.
Weaved your fate. It's actually carving your fate with runes into a piece of wood, is what the Norns were said to do in this one particular place. And it's funny how much we have as far as magical practice
Hmm.
that is, I'm not going to say it's made up, but it is adopted, it's reconstructed completely. There is no religious practice known as far as original source material, other than word of mouth and then it changing itself up. So it's hard to say, just go pick up a book, man, because most books are manipulated by, like metaphysical or new age type of understanding, which is fine. It's blending multiple um, archetypes of divination into one, or uh, multiple practices into one, and that's great because it doesn't. We're all mutts at this point, so I never hate on somebody who is practicing that way. But it's funny how much we have as far as magical information on runes that it's modern. We've made that since the 19th century,
Right.
which is but if you look back at what those individual runes mean, and you use the magic that Odin has given through those individual sounds, it's understandable how you can still make the correspondence to say, yes, this is now a magical stave, like the one that you guys have tattooed. The one that you have tattooed wouldn't have any historical pertinence, yet it is absolutely pertinent for what you're using it for. There wasn't too much understanding of how people use runes that far back. So which is kind of cool to know how much we've grown and evolved this belief system via our own thoughts and needs, you know?
So we actually have several books on runic magic,
Yeah.
and one thing that I did do, because you mentioned that it's carved in wood, is we got the little circular pieces of wood that I
Yep.
carved all the different symbols and whatnot, and also I was reading that the colors are also significant for each one of the runes, and so
Right.
I actually painted them those colors, and
Sure.
of course that's something else that I really want to learn more about.
Yeah, and see, and that's one of the perfect examples of there's nothing wrong with that. The correspondence of colors to um, herbs or stones or the runes themselves. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do that in our practice, but it wouldn't have been before, or at least we don't know. You know, so I take everything as I need fact as far as if we're talking about people prior. Practice however anybody wants is how I say now. But if we're talking about the people of the Viking Age Scandinavian areas, there is no proof that we had to color them, right? There's no proof that we had correspondences between use these herbs with these stones, carved these runes on these stones or this specific wood. None of that was there. And it could have very well been a thing, but it wasn't something that Christianization allowed to pass by and continue on. So what we find, what I mean by that is we have the stories of the gods, and we have the stories of the heroes, and we have how stories of how the heroes paid homage to gods, but there's nowhere that we can read how do I worship the gods? How do I practice religiously? And that's because during Christianization they allowed a whole lot of things to go through and stay around because it helped you to convert over, right? So they would
Right.
tell you, oh, well, Thor is just Jesus, who's call it a different name. Your hammer is just the cross upside down, and you just wear the same thing. So people would start using these things to correspond and be able to live together, to mesh well together. And so King Haakon the Good was very well known for this. He was a king of Norway, and there was one town, Thrudheim, which was still pagan, very much pagan. And the church kept pushing this king to make this place convert. So his idea was, let's pick the best holiday they have, the biggest holiday they have, which is Yule, right? Or Yule is what we call it now.
Yeah.
And we still have things that are in practice now in tradition, the Yule log. That was a thing. That was, you picked a giant log that was going to burn the whole season through because you can't get back out into that inclement weather and be able to get the log that you need to restart the fire. So you had to get out a giant big one, and you might as well make it a celebration because it's 24 hours of darkness in half of Scandinavia at this time, right? You don't have sunlight, and we're gonna get into that a little bit, but that's where Ragnarok comes from, the cycle of death and life, where there's absolute darkness and then the absolute light. But what you have is King Haakon the Good going there and saying, okay, you guys are celebrating Yule. You're celebrating the birth of the sun because it's the summer solstice, or the winter solstice, rather. Mm-hmm. So the birth of the sun, this is when the sun's going to start getting longer in the sky. He's going to stay here longer. You'll have better crops, etc. So we're making oaths and we're swearing, New Year's resolutions. All these types of things come from Yule. Now King Haakon goes in and says, you're celebrating Yule. It's the birth of the sun. Why don't we all celebrate together? I'll celebrate the birth of the Son of God, and you celebrate the birth of the sun. Nobody needs to really have a worry about which one is which. We're just have to celebrate together. So that was the stipulation he put on Thrudheim, which is, you guys are, been practicing the summer or the winter solstice for thousands of years. You and other pagans. And I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but you and other pagans for 1,000 years have been practicing this way. Let's make Jesus' birthday, the Son of God, this day as well. So Christmas is not actually, so the Bible actually depicts Jesus' birthday right around spring. I mean, the animals are grazing in the pasture.
Mm-hmm.
The story is speaking as if it's spring, like April or May, where Jesus was around. And the idea of Christmas didn't come, Christ Mass didn't come until King Haakon agreed that pagans could celebrate the same day as the Christians, and that's how he started converting those last pagans. So it's funny how much goes into manipulating the pagan to be the Christian. And you'll see it even in like the TV show Vikings. So I don't put any. There's not really any historical accuracy to most of the Vikings show, which is sad because it's a great show. But in the last season, Uba said something, and it struck close to home because it really was true to why the Norse people didn't stand up and fight against Christianity. He did it for what Christianity could do for his people over time versus what they would do for the people right now. So it wasn't about manipulating his people. It was about tricking them into something that's going to be so much better over time because you're protected at the time by the church. Your poverty was taken care of by the church. Your medical was taken care of by the church. The church did these things, which we don't see today. It's harder to see that today. But yeah, winding back, the runes and the religious practice of that type of thing, we didn't get to see any of that as far as a how-to manual because that got destroyed. If there was even any surviving text, it got destroyed. But what they did do is say, you can keep the stories. The stories are great. We can tell these. Today you'll have a mom talk about Hercules, and she'll talk about Zeus, and this is a bedtime story for her Christian child. What she won't talk about is the horses sacrificed for Zeus, and she won't talk about how Zeus turned into a female to sleep with a bunch of men to manipulate. All of these like shape-shifting and religious how-tos weren't involved in the stories of how great Hercules was and how magnanimous Zeus was. This is things that are left out intentionally. So we lose a lot potentially there. I might have gone off track there, but basically that's why I think we don't have the religious how-tos, and we don't know how much practice magically was done with the runes. The runes seem to have been a very archaic, out-of-date thing by the time the Roman language came, or the Roman alphabet.
Right. Well, you mentioned about like Christianity, and I've actually sat there and pondered over how similar the stories are with God and Jesus and I'm one of these people that I'm not ashamed to say that I call Odin my God, and when I pray to him, and I don't care what religion you are, God is God.
Yeah.
I don't care what you call him.
I would call that Great Spirit, being at several sacred ceremonies like pipe ceremonies and like the sweat lodge type scenario, those types of ceremonies with Native American elders. Mm-hmm. It's Great Spirit, and that to me makes the most sense to just call it Great Spirit, which for me is bigger than Odin, only because I knew that first, and it makes more sense for the universe in my scientific, super analytical mind. So that's the hardest thing for me in practice is I work in science. I mean, I'm a wildlife educator. I work with exotic animals. I work with a lot of plants. So, I mean, biology is my thing. So it's hard to have my brain wrap around both, which Great Spirit does for me the best. And it's not a bad thing that you call Odin like a Christian would call God. And you could call that thing interchangeably the same thing, because it is. The All-Father is the All-Father, the All-Maker is the All-Maker, and it's unfortunate we have to have these limitations, these borders between us of what name to call the All-Father when we all have different stories about it, and we all have different languages that say the same thing,
Exactly. Now, before we get into the ghost stories, can you talk a little bit about I think it was King Bluetooth?
Say that again? Yeah. So as far as Bluetooth stories go, there aren't many stories that I find original source material enough to talk on. What I can say is the Bluetooth name more than likely came from him eating blueberries or having horrible dental health. But the horrible dental health thing, I don't believe at all. And here's why. The Vikings, or the Scandinavian people of the Viking Age and after, were extremely well groomed. Most of your common products for hair and whatnot, they were all originated in Scandinavia. As far as like dental picks, ear cleaning tools. And sure, there are ancient Chinese remedies for everything, but as far as Europeans go, we were the most well-groomed people around. So I doubt that it really was the dead tooth concept, because a lot of people like to play that game, and I don't think so. Plus, they were badasses. They would have knocked that tooth right out. Wouldn't have been a bother. But I do think it probably was he was again a well-traveled, well-versed, well-educated person on many cultures. It was probably a blueberry wine or a plum wine from down on the Silk Road that made teeth blue, and then of course we make a binding rune that now we use on every single Bluetooth, created. So unfortunately, that's like one of the only kings that I don't have um, too much genuine information on. To be honest with you, I'm ashamed to say. So
Oh
you
no,
caught
no,
me.
no, 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 no. Well, the
Yeah,
only
no, it's
reason
all good.
it's why the reason why I mentioned it is because I think a lot of people don't know that's where they got the name Bluetooth, that
Yeah,
you hook up your speakers or whatever, and the symbol for Bluetooth is a couple of
it's
runes
literally
put
a room.
together. Right.
Yeah, yeah. And so the runes are Hagal and uh, Bjarken, which are from the younger Futhark. If they were from the elder Futhark, they would have been Berkano and Hagalaz. But Hagalaz looks like the rune you have in the circle on your tattoo with the 2 straight vertical lines and the 3 slanted horizontal lines, which
Mm-hmm.
is actually a little bit manipulated from the original or from the original rune. But that is the Hagalaz, the hail rune, which literally means hail from the sky. Yeah, yeah.
I
But
just
it's funny how many things are like the Yule log, like the Bluetooth, like so many, like the Christmas tree. That's a pagan thing.
hmm
There's so many things that are in our common day to day that we have no idea came from
And Thursday.
them.
And don't forget Thursday and a couple
Yeah,
other
yeah.
days.
Thursday. Yeah. So I mean, everyone but Saturday, right? So you have Sunday
Yeah.
is Sol Day, which is the sun. Mani
Yep.
is Moon Day or Mani's Day. There's Tyr's Day, Tuesday. That's Tyr. Woden's Day, of course. That's my day. Wednesday is my day for anything that's gonna cause fuckery in my life or anything that's gonna bring me. Bring me. I mean, Odin treats me like a slave. Yep. And then Thor's Day, Throya's Day, which is Freya, and Saturn is the only one that has one that isn't the Nordic names. And I often wonder why Saturn got that, because frankly,
That's
I don't practice Gratian. He doesn't deserve it.
All right, so what I
Yeah,
know, especially my buddy Darren that listens in every week, he's very anxious to hear your ghost stories, and so bring it on.
yeah, yeah. So a little bit of information on what would have been considered like a haunting or a leftover spirit that didn't find peace, right?
hmm
So, because there wasn't too many ghost stories, and most of the ghost stories come from like 17th century, and they're old Gaelic or Celtic ghost stories. So, what I do have is the concepts of what stayed here when they should have passed on, and then I do have one that if everybody wants to look up, I can kind of just give the link because it is a very long ghost story that's not very attractive. It's just not that exciting. It's a ghost that is up on a fjord and it's just an old woman that everybody sees and nobody really knows if she's there. And again, it was a Gaelic story that all of a sudden now is in Iceland. To be honest, I'm not going to tell that story, but I'll leave the link. I'll tell you the link and I'll post it on my Instagram as well. But what I do have for you, like I said, first off, you have 4 parts of the soul, or 4 parts of you per se in Norse faith, and where this comes from directly as far as time, I couldn't say, but it's definitely before, obviously, the Christianization, and probably much prior to that, because Christianization happened fast in the Viking Age. Even, I mean, Iceland was done with paganism by 900 or 1000. No, Christianized in 1000. Sorry. So it was pretty quick. But you have the Hammer, which is Europe, which is your appearance, but your appearance could change. That's all about shape shifting. If you say Odin, his hammer is an old guy, no eye on one side, wide brim hat, cloak, spear. What your hammer is what most people think you are in appearance. Then you have your hugr, and your hugr is your personality, and that does continue on. That's what we assume continues on after death. Your soul that has whatever whatever you became during this life, the adult you became during this life, is your hugr. Your fugya is your spirit animal, which, for the most part, people kind of think completely goes away once you die. So if you're kind of like a shy person or reclusive person, your fugya would be a deer, a frog, a turtle, something like that, where it's something that you think of immediately corresponding to a reclusive type of animal. But if you're a warrior, if you're a king, you might be, seeing a wolf totem. And if we wanted to get into shapeshifting, frankly, that's a big thing to drop on everybody, but I am a shapeshifter, and lycanthropy is a thing. So, but Fylgja is your spirit animal, or your familiar spirit. And then you have Hamingja. Hamingja is your family luck. You add to your family luck, or you subtract to your family luck in a karmic reaction, right? So if you have a real shit cousin, your shit cousin can bring you down in overall luck because you're connected through your Hamingja. And that's the number one thing that connects your family in Old Norse religion. So again, not in traditional modern times, but definitely before Christianization. So what would happen, right? If you had, well, of course, you could go, if you die, you go to an afterlife, we would all hope, and your afterlife would be Helheim, which is a shadow world, basically, of this one. You would go to Valhalla, or Valhalla, which would, of course, be if you died in battle and Odin actually selected you. That was a big thing. Not everybody who died in battle actually went to Valhalla. That was something that was has been horribly contested back and forth, but I do believe that. The realm of Ran. Ran is Aegir's wife, and they basically control the sea. It's the female Poseidon, if you will. And Ran grabs you in her net if you've fallen off of a giant ship on a voyage, and you would stay in the realm of Ran in a very water world scenario. Of course, now you can breathe underwater, and you'd probably be a serpent. Then there was Folkvanger. Folkvanger is an afterlife that is supposedly Freya's, or Freya in English, Freya's area. And it's said in one poem in Grimnir, in Grimnismal, where Odin is Grimnir, that Freya takes half of the dead and the other half go to Valhalla when they are slain. So there's a concept of Hell, Valhalla, the realm of Ran, which doesn't give a name, and Folkvanger, if you die. But, of course, there is the mound, and you can stay in your burial mound, and that's where we get hauntings, and that's where we're going to bring in, you said it was Darren?
Yes.
Your friend?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's where we're going to have interest there, because all that other shit doesn't matter. If you were found staying in the mound, it could be because you weren't buried properly. Of course, we get stories of if you were not Christian, if you were wronged at death, if you were wronged in life, if somebody stole something from you and you were murdered because of that. These were all ways to stay in the mound, not go to an afterlife, and ultimately become a haunting. So, these were never ghosts, per se. They were always zombies. They were a physical form. And they were always depicted as blue, which is what we would assume dead people look like after being cold. And Hel, which is the queen of Helheim, or Hel, was half cut down the middle, blue on one side, beautiful on the other, as if she is both life and death in the transition of. So you'd have this blue zombie that sticks around their mound, or where you've cast their body after death. A Haugboy would basically mean no harm at all, unless the grave was disturbed. If you came to came to get his riches, because oftentimes you were buried with everything you owned, because you would take it to Valhalla, or you would take it to the next afterlife. Or ultimately, there was one belief that you would take it to Helheim and be recouped with it when you reincarnated into your family line, which is too much to get into now, but that's basically it. And then you have Draugrs. a Draugr. If anybody plays Skyrim, by the way, you've come across Draugrs, and they're a pain in the ass. By the way, Norse culture's, littered through every fantasy, Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, Skyrim, Lost Girl, any of these things that you watch, it's littered with it. But the Draugr would not really be so nice unless the grave was disturbed. It would attack you. It would go out on missions to right the wrongs that were. And there were Optergangr, which Optergangr sounds like aftergoer, and that's exactly what it means. Opter means after, Gangr means walker or goer or the place you are going. So if you say Ganga, it means going. Ganga, Helheim, I'm going to Helheim. So you have Optergangers, and that is what we know as a zombie. Somebody who just kind of hasn't passed on. We don't really know why he hasn't passed on, or she. And she goes about the world just kind of fucking things up, to be honest. But in Njol's saga, it is a one of the original source material. Gunnar Hamundarson. So Gunnar is his name. Is often seen in the moonlight roaming around because a farmer who hired him killed him based off of a liking he took to a family member or something like that. And usually they don't have intentions of physical harm, again, unless you're going to their grave plot. But in this one, Gunnar had killed several people who were hired to kill him. And then later, one of the ones who was hired to kill him ended up being, this Optergangr or Draugr as well. So what you get is not really ghost stories, per se. What you get is zombies that have come back out of the ground to make the peace or make things right. So, I was saying that we do have that one ghost story. It's Djokin o Mirka, which is a deacon of Dark River, and at this point, it's already talking about Christianization. So it's a Christian deacon that has died, and it's just not something that I think is really pertinent to what I have my expertise on. So I have 3 pages of this story. If I can link it, or however, I don't know how you guys think is best to be able to give this to listeners if they want it, unless you want me to just read this, and I could, but I think it kind of gets monotonous as far as it's a very easygoing ghost story with not a whole lot of pertinence or content. So it's up to you. That's all up to you.
Unless you just want to paraphrase it, we could move on to something else.
Yeah. So basically what had happened in Iceland, there is the Dark River, which is it's called, so it's translated to Dark River. It's Mirka, and it's a farm. And on this farm, there was a deacon. He had a girlfriend, and her name was Gudrun. Now, she lived on the other side of the Hurga River, and her farm was named Bagiso. Now, she was the housemaid of the farm as well as the pastor. So one day, the deacon of the original farm basically crossed the river with his horse Foxy to meet up with Gudrun and ask her to join in a Christmas party at Mirka, the Dark River. But an accident happened, and while he was riding back home from discussing Christmas plans with her, a whole lot of snow had fallen. He lost his way, and he didn't realize that he was getting into a river, and the river ice broke, and he fell through. And he actually hit his head on a chunk of ice and then drowned. He didn't just drown, but his horse drowned. He drowned after getting knocked out by a big chunk of ice going back home. And it was over this this well-known bridge, Solberg. What that means, it escapes me. Icelandic's a little hard for me, like modern Icelandic, because this is when I got the story. I asked a few of my Icelandic friends, and they gave it to me in modern Icelandic, so it's harder for me to translate. But Solberg was the bridge, and basically this deacon went to go see his girlfriend, got plans to go see her at Christmas. When he was coming back, he fell into a river and died. Then a farmer found the deacon's body the next day, and then they buried him a week before Christmas. Gudrun didn't hear about his death, though, and it was not possible for her to, through this inclement weather, cross this river, especially after whatever horrible accident has just happened, not knowing it was actually him that died. So Christmas Eve comes along. The deacon arrived to pick her up as promised, and Gudrun had no idea that she was dead, or he was dead rather. So this is where it's a ghost story, and you get the woo. She hurried out to meet him. He, only had time to put one sleeve over her overcoat, and they didn't talk at all. And all of a sudden, there's a horse riding behind them, and they rode together towards the river. The deacon's face was hidden by a hat, and that was kind of foreign. But she thought, hey, the inclement weather is going on, so ultimately the deacon was in disguise. But as soon as they reached the river, that deacon's horse tripped, and of course the hat fell off, and now Gudrun realized that she was riding with a bare-skulled man, or a skeleton man, and the moon's shining and the clouds lit up, and of course now she sees the skull. And the deacon does say, "The moon fades, death rides. Don't you see a white spot on the back of my head? Garun, Garun." He called her Garun. Why? I don't know. It was a pleasantry, if you will. And in Icelandic, it actually goes, "Månen líður, dáðin gríður, sérðu ekki hvítan blett, í hnakka mínum, Garun, Garun." Now, of course, Gudrun's frightened. She doesn't respond. She's heard of accounts of this happening, and again, this doesn't tell me why, but she's heard of accounts of this happening and hopes it's just the moon doing so. So they didn't speak until they arrived at the gate at Myrka to get off the horse, and this is where we're going to hang out, right? This is where the plans came. So wait here, Garun, Garun, while I move Faxi, the horse, over the fence. In Icelandic again. Bidu herna Garun, Garun, medan ek flytt han faxa, faxa upp, föru garda, garda. There's a lot of repetitive in the poetry here. Now, the ghost of the deacon is called Gudrun, Garun, after his death. Ghosts could not utter the words for God, because that's the first part of the name, right? Gudr, or Godr, is God. So they couldn't mutter the words God without thinking or potentially seeing this ghost around this Christmas time. So Gudrun runs, she sees a graveyard, she runs through this grave, and all of a sudden there is this ghastly skeleton figure, again, in the grave plots, around the grave plots. And now the deacon, she gets chased by him, he grabs her, she gets her sleeve ripped, and she runs off. Now remember when I said he only had time to put on one sleeve. So now she's starting to realize that death is coming for her, right? She's starting to see that because he showed up with a skeleton and with one sleeve, and now her sleeve is being ripped off in the grave plot, or in the graveyard, she's starting to see that this is going to happen. This is going to happen to me. So she realized that he must have died, and she must have met his ghost, and she was so scared that she rang a bell, running help, until she found a farm. Why she had a bell, couldn't tell you. But she did. Of course, this is a ghost story from the 1700s. So Gudrun was then haunted by this deacon's ghost every single night, and nobody could ever get sleep. For a fortnight, she did not sleep, and she could not be alone. Somebody had to be with her forever. So a sorcerer comes from Skagafjordur, which is another place in Iceland, and performs an exorcism, right? Because we're in Christianity, so an exorcism is done. They got his bones, they have him laid out, and they do an exorcism on the deacon. And all of a sudden the hunting stopped. But the rock, of course, can be seen by the graveyard. So if you go to Myrka and you rent a car from Reykjavik, you can take Road 814 into Horgadalur Valley, and that's right next to Oxnordalur, which it actually happened on. And you can get right to these places, and it's said that during Yule, the week of Yule, that you can see this happening. And of course, you'll see the deacon, and he's riding with his horse, and he's chasing a woman, and so on. So that's it. I mean, that's kind of the story. It's kind of one of those, if you've heard it once, you've heard them all. But I know if I had a local if I had a local tale like that, I'd be like, oh hell yeah, you know. So it's fun. It's fun. It's interesting enough. It's funny to me. It's kind of comedic at this point to see how the lore is intentionally set in to be more scary, because the lore is all about. So the deacon died, but he died a non-Christian way, or he died an evil way, or he was supposed to die. I'm sorry, he wasn't supposed to die this way type thing, and that's why he was haunted. So him himself was actually a ghost story, but again, if we're talking about Viking Age ghost stories, it was all zombies. It wasn't ghosts at all. And an apparition wasn't the thing, to be honest.
Wow. I could sit here for hours and listen to these stories, man. But
Yeah, I love the stories, the stories are what makes it fun. And it's all poetic, too, that's the thing. So, I mean, any of the poetic, out of the prose Edda, which is kind of flaky on being an original source material, and a bunch of the Icelandic sagas, everything was put into into a poetry that had rules. There were rules about how you spoke to a king in poetry. There were rules about Eddic poetry versus skaldic poetry. So the embellishment alone is fascinating. But because of the embellishment is why we have to be reserved in what we think they mean when they're talking. This is where we get, several names of, like Snorri Sturluson, who does the prose Edda. He has several names of Sjöfn is a goddess he talks about, and among others. And these names were more likely than being actual goddesses. P.I.T.T, which is a different name for the same name you mean. So it's probably all Freya, right? It's probably all Freya, and instead of saying Freya, the rule says you have to alliterate with an S here in this next line. So what can I say? Well, Sjöfn means pure love. Why don't I just say Sjöfn if the goddess of lust and sexuality is Freya, and I'm talking about Freya, I'll just use Sjöfn. But then we've put a spirit into that name, right? So now we have 1,000 gods from Norse paganism that people believe in and put energy into, which again I don't find to be a wrong thing. But at the time, Sjöfn more than likely was never a goddess. There is no place name. There is no lore that says that could be a thing outside of one man who was a convert from Christianity, who was actually just making the rule book on how to write Nordic poetry. So the prose Edda is all an instructional manual on how to make Norse poetry. Nothing more. We get a ton of stories from there that we don't get from the Poetic Edda, so we have to take it and say, maybe this guy knew some stuff. But the things like Sjöfn and putting a bunch of different gods' names into the stories, I do believe is about alliteration and the rules of the poetry, which also make it fun, right? I mean, it's up to you to decide. And if you're a man or a woman who wants to be a priest of Sjöfn or a priestess of Sjöfn, because that's pure love as opposed to lust and sexuality and things, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. At this point, there's so much energy put into that energy is a thing, right? It's just like if you guys go to a paranormal investigation and there has been so much energy put into this one place, damn right that the meter's going to read. Damn right it is. It's going to happen. Whether or not that original source came from a death or the energy put into what we thought was a death, it's still there. And it's relevant. It's relevant. It's all relevant.
wow. I could say I've got like hundreds of questions to ask you, but I feel like I'm leaving Rodney out of the whole conversation.
Yeah,
So
he's just smoking cigarettes down there, getting canned.
Oh no, I'm here. I'm here.
go ahead, Rodney. Jump in.
I just got way too interested, just listening. I'm going, no, keep talking, keep
Yeah.
talking. So to be honest, I know very little with any folklore, mythology, anything like that. A lot of the stories, I mean, most of mine's like Beowulf and
Yeah.
things like that. I mean, of course,
Right.
Beowulf, I love the story,
Right,
but
which came from the English, but it has a ton of names that came from Old Norse poetry. I mean, Beowulf's one of our biggest sources of material, and you just have to re-implement it into the Old Norse because it is what is it, Pictish or Gaelic. I honestly don't remember which one the Beowulf came from, but it wasn't Norse. But they used a bunch of Norse names. But it was from England. It was from England.
Oh,
Yeah, but that's a wonderful story. Grendel's a beast. I mean, that was like Grendel kept me up at night at some points when I was a kid. Yeah, but the concept of the heroes and the motivation that people had, all of that's the same in Beowulf as it is in the Poetic Edda, for sure, for sure. And it's great to see how close in like mileage in distance from people, all the stories, how well they went together.
oh yeah.
For sure.
You done give up, Rodney?
Yeah, man. It was just like, wow, okay. I gotta have to do some more reading up on something like this.
Oh, I know,
Yeah.
man.
So I mean,
Wait,
if I can throw some book recommendations out, that like none of them are mine. They're not plugs for me. But definitely, I mean, the Poetic Edda by Jackson Crawford, translated by Jackson Crawford. That's by Ori something or other in 1200. Don't need to know his name; he's dead. But Jackson Crawford is the best to read it in English that we can understand. That is taken away from a bit of the poetry and giving facts on what the names mean, what the words mean, without so much magic in it, so that you can really get a basis of the information that's given to you, and then you can go back and read read some of the older translations that I guess are more poetic. Most of the translations for me are stretches. Most of them are stretches, to be honest, on what is supposed to be being understood from the reading. Jackson really takes it from a historian's point of view. He's done this since he was very, very young. He is American, so of course he gets a bunch of shit because as Americans, we can't know anything about Norse culture more than the Europeans.
yeah,
Which, in this day and age, I understand. We took a whole lot from them and said, fuck off. But I mean, the guys like Jackson, he knows what he's talking about, and he gets discredited at times by Americans saying, "Oh, well, that's an American. I can't learn from him." You can't even read the poetry in the other languages or in the other translations, so don't get on me about that. But I mean, that one's good. Kirsten Wolf has a great Viking Age, the extraordinary era of the Viking Age. It's like embellished now, but it's basically called Viking Age.
yeah.
That's a great one. That in plain English, that one has taught. I knew a lot of what I was reading, but the way it brought it to me, I'm like, hell yeah, this is a book more than anything I can recommend. Anders Roth has a great book out there. I think it's just called Viking Age or Life of a Viking.
Cool.
But if you look up Anders Roth, you'll find it. There's a few, but if you can get into the translation of the Poetic Edda, it's a long book. They do have it on ebook. But it's all the original source stories, right? And it has
Okay.
commentary in it to explain. I mean, there's nothing but pure gold there. Yeah,
Cool.
it buckled down a whole lot of okay. I don't have to look anywhere else, and that's the thing.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
You get into the internet and you can go anywhere. You can go anywhere, and you don't know if you're hurting or helping your understanding. And yeah, with him, and he has a YouTube video as well. I do too, but I deleted everything off it except for 2 videos. And one of which is singing anyway, so it's like there's one on women in the Viking Age on my YouTube, which is Life and Religion of the Northmen. That will get updated. I just got a GoPro, so I can actually do the videos not sitting in this room here. I can actually like be out in nature with a free thought concept. I don't like sitting here doing this type of thing. I'd rather be walking around and just kind of speaking on what comes to me as we're talking. But so yeah, I deleted like 13 videos off of that. But Jackson Crawford has 300 videos, everyone
Wow.
pertaining to this. And it's talking about Indo-European up to now and everything in between as far as how the language evolved, how the people migrated to where they are today, why Odin came from Germany, where Freyr was probably, or Tyr was probably, okay, so Tyr in Norway and Denmark was more than likely the sky god, the high god, I won't say Allfather because his name doesn't mean that, but Tyr is cognate with Zeus. So at some point, Zeus lost, or the concept of Zeus turned into Tyr, and then Tyr, who was the sky god, lost his throne to Odin. And that is pretty true about historians' understanding. But then in Sweden, you have Freyr, which his name used to be Yngvi, which means king. And Freyr in Old Norse means lord, and Freya means lady. So
Yeah.
there was a huge evolution of, Norse paganism is not one spot in one area. It's one of the largest European distances around, on top of a very, very, like we're talking 600-700 to 1,000, because the Viking Age doesn't just tell when we believed in these gods. Half the Viking Age we didn't. We were Christians at that point. So it's fascinating. Turville Petre is the guy's name, who did Life and Myth of the Northmen, which I actually derived my YouTube channel from. But mine's Life and Religion of the Northmen. Life and Myth of the Northmen, and if I'm wrong on that, I'll put it somewhere. I'll make a post on my story, actually, on Instagram if everybody wants to see it that's listening to this. But it'll be up there for 48 hours. I'll throw it up there twice for all the information that I should be giving you, as far as written. But that book alone, it's like $160.
Wow.
Somebody pirated it to me. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm just saying I got it like fifth-handed to me. Yeah.
Don't say anything.
Somebody gave me a hardback for free. That's what I'm gonna tell you.
That's
No, okay. But that one there, it talks about atheist Vikings in the Viking Age, where like people didn't believe in gods at all. It was more like a Satanism. Which I'm actually well versed on, and I thought I was for a long time prior to being born back into paganism, if you will.
Yeah.
But it's super fascinating where he talks about how Odin came with migratory people, and Freyr over here got kicked out by those migratory people, and Tyr got kicked out. And it's super fascinating how it evolved, and we don't really know that that's even how it is, but based on place names and burial mounds and some of the rune stones we have, it seems as if Tyr and Freyr were in Odin's position, and Odin came as a usurper, which I would believe based on all the stories of Odin. Everybody wants to call Odin an Allfather. Basically, he is a son of a bitch. I mean, he goes out for himself and nothing more. He always swindles, in stories at least, always swindles his believers or the people he makes deals with. All for inevitably saving the world, right? So I guess there's some altruism there, but there's not without payback. He always gets the better part of the deal. That's the thing with Odin.
Wow.
And there's nothing that, I mean, look at God, shit. I mean, it's all fine, but Odin seems like more of a usurper than a genuine loving Allfather. Although, if he was our Allfather, my dad was a bastard sometimes, right? So. I mean, it just seems there's a ton of history that like you can't even scratch the surface in an hour with you guys,
Oh, I know. We could easily make a weekly show just talking to you.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe at 9:00 though, man. This was a bitch. This is getting home, like speeding home. There's people in front of me at the stoplight that normally isn't fucking red when I get to it. It's like, man, I gotta get like, yeah, got a couple dogs and some ferrets I gotta care for before I got on here.
Yeah,
it's all good though, man. I was super excited about this though.
Oh,
sure.
I was too. I couldn't wait until today because you talk about everything that I'm so interested in, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm not that knowledgeable in it, and I want to learn, but I'm one of these people. I could sit there and read something and it goes over my head, but if you sit here and explain it to me, I got it.
Yeah.
So everybody that's listening, if you don't have one already, get you a piece of paper, get you something to write with, because we got some things for you to write down. And while you're doing that, if you haven't got it and you're looking for one, I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to have to start shutting the show down.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. My wife is over here like, what the fuck you doing? No, I'm joking.
You've probably been asked this 100 times, but what is your feelings about, you see movies like Thor, and I mean, do you feel like it kind of, what's the word, bastardizes the whole thing, or is it kind of close, or?
Right, so before I watched the first Thor, that's the only one I've seen, genuinely, and I will say if I ever have time, I want to start watching these Marvel things, because they do look more badass than I thought they would. But originally, I'm looking at like Loki being his brother and fucking Hela being this crazy character that comes out and destroys the Earth, and it was a bunch of fuckery to me. But what I have to remember, and genuinely this is now my opinion, it was a comic. And the comic embellished certain parts of it that they appreciated it. So it is art. And when dealing with art, especially in a time and place that we can have multiple cultures, traditions, and faith systems all collide with one, I really don't have a problem with it. I did have a problem with it before I saw the movie, and I guess I tried to come to grips with it prior to seeing them, or while I watched the movie. Because I started attaching to the character, and the character is played by a wonderful, wonderful actor. He really does portray Thor outside of the arrogant anger that Thor often has for giants. I'll tell you the one thing I didn't like though, Odin. Odin is not how Odin would be, and the whole concept of him being pissed off because Thor would start a war with the Jotnar is not how Odin would truly react if we're talking about how our original source material talks about Odin. Unless I would have liked some scenes where only we understood the darkness of Odin or the trickery, because although Odin may say, why did you start that war in the face of the Jotnar? He doesn't want the Jotnar around. The Jotnar are the ones who are going to come on the giant boat called Nagofar, made out of our, fingernails. One of the main reasons Norse people were groomed well was because of Nagofar at Ragnarok. The boat's name is Nagofar. Ragnarok comes, and you have a boat made out of people's nails that the giants are coming on with Loki to attack Asgard, or Osgard. So that was the one thing I didn't like. The fact that we didn't have some understanding that Odin was really okay with it, despite what he was saying, because that is just asinine. Other than that, though, I haven't seen the other ones to know. I loved how the actor depicted Thor, though. The misunderstanding a whole lot, the not having common sense in a lot of times, that was depicted truly off of who Thor is. Because oftentimes Thor is misguided or tricked by magic or sorcery that he really shouldn't be tricked by. I mean, Odin in Harbardsljov, which is Odin on one side of a ferry, and one side of a river as a ferryman, and Thor on the other side, beckoning back and forth and talking shit to each other about, do you know who I am? I am Thor. All the time it's Odin talking to him and clearly tricking Thor as a joke for whatever reason. So the ignorance about the world that Thor has in the Marvel movie was genuine, and that is the biggest thing I thought they brought home. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot of insight on that. But again, you're talking like, the same type of thing goes for Vikings.
Right.
Most of the Viking show is kind of shit. It's great entertainment, though, and I don't care. I don't watch Vikings for the history lesson. I watch Vikings for the entertainment and the implementation of some of the culture that is pertinent to the show. So yeah, I mean, if you have any other quick ones like that, like American Gods, they did an awesome job on American Gods with Odin. I loved the character of the actor that played Odin. That was perfect. Where he just spilled out a bunch of names, and as he's spilling them, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but as he's spilling it out,
I've watched that show.
like there's a bunch of theatrics going around as he's saying, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, that. That was Odin. And I'm getting goosebumps now talking about that. That was one of the best depictions, for sure.
Now, me myself, whenever I'm watching these kind of movies, I also remember that it came from a comic book, and
Yes.
it is there for entertainment purposes.
Yes.
And those that get upset over, oh, this isn't historically correct. Well, so what? It's
Yeah, it's
entertainment.
comics, man. Yeah, Thor's not a superhero, and Thor doesn't care. Thor doesn't come to Midgard, Earth, and fight Jotnar. Thor goes to Jotunheim, which is where the Jotnar are, the giants, and that's where he fights them. Midgard is not that much of a concern for any of the gods, period. So, at the point that you have Thor as a superhero coming to Earth, not Midgard, it's Earth, we got to get over that shit. We do. And I was one of them. I was. But sometimes you get caught up like, I know it all, or I fucking know better. Yeah, you just got to stay out of that when you're talking about entertainment.
Mhm.
Entertainment's entertainment.
Oh yeah, but that's the way I feel about the show Vikings. I mean, it's entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what it is, man. That is one of the best. I'm sorry, hands down, my favorite show I've ever watched,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's about Travis Hearst being able to actually generate these characters and have such intertwined storylines about the families. Like I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but fucking Rolo being Bjorn's dad. Are you shitting me? That came out way too late. Man, it was bombs being dropped. Bombs being dropped. And I'm good for it. Yep. All good.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen it, folks, you need to look it up and watch
Yeah.
it because I think we got it on demand, so we
Yep.
can just look at all at one time. But anyway, like I say,
Back.
we're about to run out of time. So
Yeah, I'm good.
Ragnar, let's tell everybody how they can find you on social media or YouTube,
For
all that
sure.
kind of stuff.
For sure. So, I mean, if you want to contact me on Facebook, I'm a bit of an asshole on Facebook. I won't lie. That's my biggest drive for like what I believe in animal rights and the ridiculousness of this country. And I'm not going to get into that here. But if you want to follow me there, you might hate me, you might love me. I'm just Ragnar Dracana there. Ultimately, on Facebook and Twitter, I am Ragnar Dracana on Twitter. Hardly touch it. Again, kind of a douche on there. I won't lie. I know who I am. But Instagram's my main feed, and I'm Modern Viking Ragnar on there. There's underscores between Modern and Viking and Ragnar. So Modern Viking Ragnar. More than welcome to take anybody's questions. If I take a bit to get back to you, I have 50 animals here I care for, as well as 1,000 at the place that I work. So I am neck deep in animal care my whole life, on top of running a pagan school with my wife and a few other projects that we have, going as characters to Ren Fair and whatnot. On YouTube, I'm Life and Religion of the Northmen. Life and Religion of the Northmen. That'll be uploading a whole lot of content there. Just got a GoPro to be able to do that. So I'll be putting more on there. And if I can't shamelessly plug, I mean, if I can shamelessly plug, I would like to say a couple things like Grimfrost. If you're ever going to get anything Viking related that you're not making yourself, go to grimfrost.com. These guys are from Sweden. Their headquarters in Sweden, and they do make authentic recreations based on historical archaeological finds on what they make. I am an ambassador for them. They sponsor me on Instagram, so if you use my my discount code at checkout, you will get 10% off of your deals, off of your order. It is
Nice.
Modern Viking 10. It's not doesn't change my influence with them. It just hooks you up. So Modern Viking 10. And then yeah, I mean, if you want to be looking for the original source material, check out Jackson Crawford and his translations of both the Poetic Edda and the Saga of the Volsungs and the Saga of Ragnar Lothbrok. Yep.
Sweet. I will give you my Facebook because I think we're only connected on Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah, we
But
are.
if you could if you could possibly send me the link to like your pages and stuff so I can post those on there and
I
people
will.
come back and check them out
I
because
will. Yeah.
if you have any even just the smallest little bit of interest in the Viking lore and runes and all that, this is the guy to go to. I'm
I
very
appreciate
impressed,
that.
very impressed with you.
I
Uh,
appreciate that, man.
So, real quick, we are, of course, Into the Pit, and you can find us on Instagram at into underscore the underscore P period I period T period underscore. Facebook, we are uh, Pit Paranormal Investigators, and remember that's Pit with two T's. Our Twitter is the same feed as you get on Instagram, and also go to teespring.com/spot/P-I-T-T-stop plus, and I do have that link on our Facebook and our Twitter. We have lots of cool merchandise on there that you can get. And once again, when we do our investigations, we don't charge anybody. We all use our own money and gas and food and all that to go to these investigations. So, the equipment's not cheap, but we yeah, we scrape it together somehow. But
Yeah, that's crazy. You don't charge, man. That's fucked up. Just saying.
no, we're here to help folks. We're not here to make a buck. And everything that we do make on teespring.com, it all goes back into what we do. And so, we would appreciate any kind of help we can get there. Once again, you can get that link on my Facebook. It's on my Twitter. I can't get a link to pop up on Instagram because I'm just not that smart. But I do have the little advertisement on there for it. And also, we always end the show saying, please join the Paranormal Bully Busters.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, that's stompoutbullying.org. And no, this is not people that are bullying those in the paranormal world. We're talking about like our kids. Yeah, just
yeah. Send me that, bro. Send me that. I gotta share the fuck out of that, honestly.
Oh, I hear you.
That was the most I got in trouble for as a kid was beating up bullies when I was a kid. So yeah, please share that. I'm a big proponent of that shit.
Oh. No, this when they sent it to me and said, "Hey, can you mention this?" I was definitely like right away, yes, no problem.
You already know. Yeah.
And you can also call them at 877-NO-BULLY. That's 877-662-8559. I do have a banner on our pages that is a reminder. You go to their website, you can buy their merchandise, and they got a lot of cool stuff on there. And you want to do that because they use all the proceeds to go to expanding the reach of their resources, and it also allows them to run their 24-hour helplines. And this is very important because our children they're bullied in school, and they need somebody that they can turn to, because it's not always easy to go to the teacher or the principal and say, oh, so and so is he's bullying me or beating me up, because it gets back to them, and the next thing you know, they're getting beat up even more. So they need help. They really do. So do that. And once again, we thank you for joining us on the show. I hope you enjoyed it.
Absolutely, brother.
And
I didn't know what to expect. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to scramble all this info. I'm like, you know what? Let's just wing it, man. I didn't know what you were gonna ask. What gotcha journalism, whatever. I'm just kidding. No, I checked out a bunch of your stuff, man. I love the podcast. Love the podcast.
Well, we try to make it comfortable for people, and get on here and enjoy yourself. And I'm not one of those people that's going to try to put you on the spot and make you look stupid. That's for
right. That's bullying, right?
That's bullying. I really appreciate everybody that stuck with us this evening. I know we've ran late, but we wanted to.
Sorry, guys. That's awesome.
Well, we just wanted to be courteous to our guest and give him plenty of time to say what he needed to say. And we're going to have to do another show sometime in the future.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, right now, I think we're booked until February. So
that's good.
Nice.
But yeah, join. Go ahead, Rodney. I'm sorry.
Lizard. I like that lizard on your shoulder there.
Yeah, that's obsidian there. That's obsidian. We breed and train reptiles, so.
Oh my gosh.
She's a tegu. Yeah, she's a good girl.
Do you train children as well?
Fuck no, man. That's hopeless. That's hopeless. Tell them read the old Norse lore and get at me.
I'm gonna go get a Thor's hammer and beat him in the head with it.
That's about it. The old ear to the face. All right. Well, as we would say, and I will tell you, it's peace be with you. Tilars och fredar. Tilars och fredar. Peace and good friend.
Oh, no, that was nice. Skull.
Skull! See you guys.
Thank you, man.
Go boy.
Thank you for joining us on Into the Pit. Please follow us on Facebook at the Vibes Broadcast Network and Instagram at the Vibes Broadcast.